me
That's all
to
right.
do that.
Begin working with them on what that idea might look like. Obviously, the stakeholder groups, the ambassadors for the eclipse, and looking at this committee as a step. So I will just say that prior to me getting that invitation, I didn't really know how exciting a total solar eclipse was going to be. Anybody in our group ever been a part of a total solar eclipse? 1, 2. Excellent. So I have not, but they have, Deb and Dan have convinced me it's going to be the moment of my life, and I don't have to drive anywhere to enjoy it. So the reality is many people will be driving miles and miles, and like 300,000 people could be coming to our area just to watch it here with us. And so it came to us that, well, that should include families with a member living with a disability, as well as some other pieces of inclusion that we'll talk about today. So that's why we're here, is to solidify what we think would be these final steps in this next 8 to 9 months that we have of planning. If we need resources and support, where's that coming from? Are we getting everyone possible to be excited about this? Because it really is something that, if you're not a chaser of eclipses, then this will be your moment. You have about another 120 years until the next one comes here. So I think this is it for us. And our generations that are currently alive. So we want to make sure that everyone under the sun, to take Dan's phrase, including parties, get invited to this party. I will ask Dan just to give this to at this point, and then who we are in this group, asking to get feedback and action item at the end of today's meeting. So Dan, I will ask you to do an overview update of where we've been.
So hi, everyone. I'm keeping with the sound off of our owl device, just because it also deals with all the lovely noise canceling effect. So I'm the Eclipse Partnership here at the Eclipse Partnership Coordinator here at the RMSC. Been working on this for a good couple of years. As a general overview, we've been having this larger stakeholder task force working towards the eclipse since 2019. Accessibility has been in the back of my mind since early on in joining, since I originally joined the task force just as a community member, and then eventually got brought on full time. We have over 500 organizations at this point meeting on an almost monthly basis. Our next meeting is July, I forget if it's the 13th or 14th at 4 p.m. I think it's the 13th. It's a Thursday. We're just trying to make sure that, all 1.1 million people in this greater Rochester region, plus that 300 to 500,000 additional people, get to experience the eclipse. As Anita said, it will be another 120 years till we get to experience it in totality here in Rochester, and even 20 years for anywhere in the continental US. We want to make sure that, nobody misses out. And one of the things that originally kept me up at night as part of this group was, well, the demographics is literally everyone under the sun. It is every single individual. As people drove here, as people interact with their neighbors, their friends or families, every single one of those people will get to experience the eclipse. And thinking how to make it as accessible as possible to make sure that as many people know about it, can interact with it. I mean, it was a good It was one of the important factors when we were thinking about our ambassador program. Because it's so many people, it's hard to wrap our minds around the demographics. And just everything that needs to be done to make sure everyone gets that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for that, Dan. So a little bit of what we've been thinking about is it's been very centric to disability inclusion, and looking at where people are. There's about 300,000 people with a disability in our greater Rochester area. So where are people? Where do people interface and connect in ways that we could reach them with information? And the funny thing is, like for me, is I don't have to be a heliophysicist and understand what's the magnitude of what's going to happen in the sky that day. But if we're talking about a public event, it's across the entire country, and it's a tourism event, right? So we're bringing in tourism industry, and so we've been thinking about the PGA and the fact that all of those people came here, but they were in one little spot. And this is literally going to be the side of the road. We're trying to encourage people not to pull over on the sides of the road, but that's the enormity of this thing. So incredible things have already taken place. You may already be aware of, but closing schools on Monday, April 8th. So the kids are not on buses somewhere, or stuck in schools or whatever. But the transportation system has been looking at how we're coordinating that. Emergency response. I know somebody asked that on our survey. Yes, emergency respondents planning has been taking place for responding to anything that might happen during this pretty large event. So when we start asking, what is the expectation around the accessibility committee, is equally as large of a task. Or what I have come to think is that a lot of the people on this committee want to plan an event in your space, some space that you're already, you have your fingers in that pot. And some of you are looking to contribute to the greater question of, are we getting everybody? Are we informing everybody? So I'm going to stop there, though. If we could go around and identify if you are part of an organization, or what is your connection to the Eclipse planning group and this particular committee. So would anybody in the room start, and then we'll go to the folks on the wall.
Okay, I'll go. My name is Sue Wyatt. I work at an agency called Starbridge, which serves people with disabilities. Most of them have developmental disabilities, so autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. And this is my son Wesley, who identifies as a person with autism. And he and I were asked to be on this committee by Starbridge management, as we're kind of self-proclaimed nerds about this sort of thing. So this is very enjoyable for us. Anyway, so what I would like to do is set up a place for people with disabilities to view the eclipse safely, and also have access to things like facilitated bathrooms, especially for folks with who might have adults that have that need, that would not be suitable for like a changing table that can accommodate a baby, right? So that's one of the things that I've learned about recently, that something to think about. The place I was looking at was the parking lot that's in between the U of R Developmental Behavioral Pediatrics location on East River Road. Across the parking lot is the Lab for Laser Energetics. So we could maybe leverage both of those folks. We know the DVP people for their disability expertise, the laser lab people for their scientific expertise. And we actually did go out on April 8th this year and took pictures of where the sun was in the sky. So it's big wide open space. And do you have some of those photographs or do I have them?
I should have them,
But
but it'll
they're-
take a minute.
But
to
they're,
pull them up.
it's very accessible. The tree line is here, the sun was there, so it was perfect. And there's lots of open space for people to park and set up stations and stuff. But what I wanted to know from this committee was like, if I request permission to go there, who do I refer them to? I'm guessing Dan and maybe Ann. Or is it Ann? Or
Anita,
Amy?
Anita.
Anita, I'm so sorry. And I just want to, what resources do we suspect we will need for this event?
So I'll be right back. I think I heard someone at the door. trying to
Okay.
get in.
All right.
Hi, I'm Dee Mascari and I work for Rochester Accessible Adventures. And we are not having an event, but our hope is to help facilitate accessibility and inclusion at area events.
I'm Sarah Abmonte. I'm the project manager for Move to Include, which is an initiative of WXXI funded by the Golisano Foundation. And we're also not necessarily planning an event, but would like to work with our community partners and offer up our platform. The whole purpose of our initiative is to offer the platforms that we have under the XXI banner for the promotion and inclusion of the disability community.
I'm Janet Collins and I am a board member for the Southeast Area Coalition. And one reason I'm on the committee is I've got it kind of unique. I've had a severe high frequency hearing loss since the age of 6. And so I have the unique experience of being not deaf and not totally hearing, which is kind of in the middle. Which is a very unique group. And also, I do not use sign language at all. If anybody tries to use sign language on me, I'm at a loss. I can lip read at 99.9% accuracy. So I need people to look at me. But I thought it would be really good to have people know a person with my disability, because so many people try to use the sign language on you, and that's just not going to work. You need to face the person, you need to speak slowly. If you speak loud and you're talking fast, that doesn't help the person at all. So anyways, there's certain things that I thought that I could bring to the community.
I'll go over here and then give her a chance to catch up. We're doing introductions.
My name is Nate Sweeney. I'm the Vice President of Skilled Services at St. John's, the nursing home. So we will be having an event for our residents at the skilled nursing facility, as well as at our other location, which serves the independent community. And really excited to be part of this committee, and also want to make sure that we're keeping the workforce that supports everyone who might need support as part of our planning as well, to make sure folks whose kids are out of school, folks that are part of the essential workforce and can't come out to events, because they will be continuing to provide services in critical care settings. What we can do to try and maximize the experience that they can have.
Excellent, thank you. Just coming in now, I will let you introduce yourself and let us know how you're connected to this committee and your interests. Mhm.
It freeze for anybody else.
We're still on here.
Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry.
We have a
I was
participant who's
completely
typing
amazed.
in. Okay.
My name is Caroline. You can also call me, Carol. I'm an event producer and advocate. I am also on the board for Deaf Refugees Advocacy. I'm excited to be part of this. Okay, then good. Yeah, that's, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I think we can move to someone on, if you don't mind, I'll just call, Al, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Al Hamill from the Brockport Lions Club, and somebody texted me last night and said you might want to log into this meeting because I've been trying to keep track of what's happening with the eclipse as far as what Brockport can provide out here. So we're working with the college and with the school district and trying there. So I'm not sure this is a committee that I need to be, or this meeting I need to be a part of at this point. Because there are several different organizations out this way that are working on this. I'll answer any questions if anybody has anything, but I've attended a couple of the meetings. There was one at Brockport College a month or so ago, and more focused on transportation and what we can provide for people out in the Brockport area.
Thanks, Al. I think there will be some conversation today that probably will be important for Brockport.
Okay.
Because you're right in the middle of it. So there could be some relevance to you as you're looking at where those events are being held. So,
Okay.
Tracy?
Hi, everyone. Tracy Crosby, and I'm with the Arc of Monroe. Hi, Anita. We're just really to echo what the representative from Starbridge said. We're really trying to make sure that it is fully accessible and inclusive for the people we support. We also serve people throughout Monroe County with IDD. So we're all kinds of disabilities, all kinds of mobility challenges. So we just want to make sure that it's a great experience and that everybody's safe, first of all, and that our staff and that the people we support can enjoy the experience. And we also, greater good, like we want to make sure our community is accessible. That is a big thing for us as well right now, just in general. So if we're bringing all these people in, we just want to make sure everybody is able to navigate it appropriately.
Excellent, thank you. Pilar?
Hi, everyone. I'm Pilar Osorio. I am the president of Grupo Cultural Latinos in Rochester, or GCLR for short. And we do a lot of events around Latino culture regarding music, dance for adults, kids, bilingual storytelling. And so my participation in this committee is more of the language accessibility for people who have English as a second language and their main language is Spanish, and people who don't speak other language that isn't Spanish.
Great, thank you. Lori?
Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me to this. I'm with the Genesee Transportation Council, and I'm on the overall task force, kind of representing the transportation planning sector. But I'm always interested in, meeting new people and making sure what we know the needs are, and if I can communicate any of these ideas and needs to, the folks in the government and planning sector, emergency services, I'll be able to do that. Like I said, I love meeting new people. So thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you, Lori. Laura?
Hi, all. I'm Laura Keeney. I am a former aerospace journalist turned aerospace worker until I became sick and disabled, and now I'm unable to work any longer. So that's why I'm on this committee. I want to make sure that we make the materials, the the physical event, everything as accessible as possible, both for mobility disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and those with, somebody mentioned autism earlier. I think that's a really important one to talk about. The other thing that I'd love to bring up, and I know it's kind of a hot button issue right now, but for a lot of folks that are immunocompromised, how are we going to make this a safe event so that they can participate now that masking is not as prevalent? So that's something I'd like to focus on.
Okay, thank you. Kristen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Smith. I work at the Arc of Monroe with Tracy Crosby. And so just like she said, we just want to make sure that we can give this opportunity to as many people as we can in our area of the Arc of Monroe, but also across Monroe County. So very excited to be here and learn more.
Thanks, Kristen. Caitlin.
Hi, yes, my name is Caitlin Stoffel. I am the director at Golisano Autism Center. We are a hub of providers that provide various different services to our autistic friends and families. With that being said, we have several of our providers a part of the ambassador committee. So I am here to help them ensure that the events that they're putting on here at GAC continue to be inclusive, as well as providing that safe space for all of our participants across all of our providers within GAC.
Excellent. Thanks, Caitlin.
Of course.
Diana?
Hi, everyone. Diana Keating from Visit Rochester. We are the official tourism promotion agency for Monroe County. So ensuring an accessible and inclusive experience for our visitors is of the utmost importance. And while we're not planning any of our own Eclipse events, we are a conduit for more than 450 Visit Rochester members throughout the community and providing resources to them as they plan their own events.
Excellent. Thank you. Jennifer?
Hi, Jennifer Farringer from the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence Rochester area. This is my first meeting, so just interested in how we can participate and be part of this. But I see this meeting is focused on access, which could really apply to so many different populations. For us at NCADD, we do addiction prevention education throughout the community. A particular disability group we work with are children with FASD. We work with the families, do a family support group. So that does carry some of the similar things that you see with children with autism. There's a little bit of similarities and differences. So accessibility in terms of that, but accessibility too for those in recovery, so perhaps considering this to be an alcohol-free, a safe, we've been talking about safe spaces. What does that mean? And what does that mean for different populations? For those in recovery, that would be an alcohol-free, drug-free event. It's another thing to consider.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jennifer. And Kelly? Kelly, are you there? Okay, we will move on. Kelly, when you get there, please just jump in.
So I have a question. She has to be there. Question. So the Rochester community does a great job with advocating for the deaf and for the blind. But if there's a combination, if there's a deaf blind, they're often skipped over. And what strategies do people come up with for dealing with people that have a combination of disabilities such as deaf, blind, and that type of thing?
Great, thank you for that question, Carolyn. So I think for this next piece, having heard some of the things that y'all are interested in, it's also great to know what's already out there in the Eclipse world, like the science side of this experience. That's the really fun part that we're hoping that all of the events, it'd be great if everybody could have some of these elements, but there are some pieces of equipment that make viewing and experiencing the eclipse more meaningful to more people, and particularly what you were asking with your question. So let me just run through a couple of examples. One of them is a film of paper that you can create a tent, like you would do it if you were at a vendor event and you had put up your pop-up tent to put your table under. But you put this film across it, and through that paper, you can just stand and look and be able to see the eclipse happening above you. So that works in a lot of, we're looking at how that can work for people who, just anyone, period, walking under a tent, looking up, not having to bother with any kind of eclipse viewers of any sort, but just experiencing it under the tent. Second to that is there's a light sound box that you probably know much more of the inner workings of that. So I'm going to let you describe it.
So there is this device that takes in, it's called a light sound device. It's open source. We have at least one here at the museum. It takes in light from a sensor and translate it into sound so that it changes pitch as, it gets darker out. And they did make it so that the sound is a bit nicer to hear compared to some other models. As for the blind, there are tactile maps and booklets created by NASA. I am working on requesting one, at least one, if not more, that gives a better look at what the eclipse should feel like. It gives explanations, it gives maps. It doesn't mention Rochester, but it does mention Buffalo, so that's close enough for me. But we are looking into buying several copies, and I would love to see if we could replicate it via 3D printing.
Another third option, the Rumble app or Rumble something another. That's my extent of knowledge on that, but can you describe that for folks as well?
What is the Rumble app?
I'm gonna let him, no, it's okay, I'm gonna let him describe it.
I believe this is the app where the phone changes frequency of its vibrations in alignment with the light it takes in from the photo sensor.
So if you imagine watching, if you're viewing it, or if you're not viewing it because of vision loss, but you have your phone in your hand and say I don't know exactly how it's set up, but it'll rumble with a short frequency. And as the sun goes across and blocks, then it might get faster and faster. So now you're in total darkness. And then it would ease up again and change frequency of the rumble as it moves past. So these things are already developed. I think for us, it's asking where can we plant, if we can get our hands on them, where can we plant them across our region strategically so that we can let people know that the app is going to be here, or the app could be put on your phone. You can use it in your backyard, or the light sound boxes will be at these locations. The Braille map and book pieces will be at these locations. So the idea is that we're in these 8 and 9 months, we make those plans, put those materials in certain locations that are strategic, and advertise that so that people know that that's where those pieces are going to be, and also train some of the volunteers around the use of those at those events. So that's part of the strategy I'm looking at as we're getting our hands on different pieces, is where do we actually plant them, and then let people know to help bring people there. So it's slightly complicated in that people have to decide when and where their events are going to be so that we can start mapping out, which I know that the Rochester group is doing, literally trying to map where events are, so that then we just put it out to the community and say, A, go to your nearest one. B, if you're looking for these pieces of equipment, go to these spaces. And then making sure that all the infrastructure around those are in place, like accessible restrooms and even more accessible ones like changing stations. So that's the strategy that we're kind of looking at. Those of you who are event planners, you could be a site for one of these implements, right? And so we would want to know if you're going to have any of those so we can advertise them. Question?
So are there gonna be any devices for people who have a vision but need magnification or have tunnel vision or you know, so that their vision can be adjusted?
There are ways to do that. So one of the ways would be through projection systems, where you don't necessarily want to magnify your eclipse glasses due to safety. But with some telescopes, we can hook it up to larger monitors. There will also be web streams that we will be able to tap in from NASA in the Weather Channel to pair along with it.
Do you know where one can find the Rumble app thing you were talking about?
I need to track it down.
Okay,
Is
because I'm interested in investigating that myself.
I think I just looked it up yesterday, so I will try to make sure we know where that one is. So again, in my mind, I'm trying to frame what is it that we want. I feel like individually, you all gave your interests in either particular issues that you would like help with, or as an organization, you're trying to get your mind wrapped around how you want to present your event. But just with this conceptualization of Greater Rochester, features for viewing and experiencing being strategically located, does that help any of you in your thinking as you're starting to look at your events? Al?
Yeah, I have a question. I just texted Dana and then, but if we can get the information about what these different devices cost, we might be able to get some of the service clubs in the area, such as Kiwanis, Rotary, Lions Club, to purchase these to have them available at different sites. And that way it would be more accessible across the county. Because obviously the organizations that are represented here, dollars and cents become an issue, but for some of the service clubs or fire departments or church groups or whatever could come together and maybe purchase a ton of these different devices, even though they're only going to be used for the 1 10-minute whatever. And we're putting something together for the community wide. It might be beneficial to, and Dan did respond saying that some of them are costing the $50 to $60 for the light sound devices. So maybe in the next couple of weeks or month, you could develop a list of what some of these items might cost and then get them out, because Lions Club, their primary focus is eyesight to begin with and diabetes. So I see this as an opportunity, like you mentioned earlier about why I should stick around. If that could be resolved somehow and getting out to the clubs, or get it to me so we can get it out to the Lions clubs and different organizations, it would be helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Al. And I do see, because of some of the work in the Brockport area already around being blind or have vision loss, I think that would be a great hub to have some of this equipment placed there strategically. So that we can send the west side of Rochester over, to your region there. So we can definitely do that. And again, and I think that goes for everybody, is looking at which of these pieces would be beneficial for you to have at your particular event if you're focused on your network of people already versus a completely open to the public kind of event. But that's some of the thoughts. Any other thoughts on what you're thinking now that we've said a little bit more about some of the accessibility pieces? I think I saw a hand. Yeah. Kristen?
Yeah, do we have a budget for interpreters and support service providers already in place?
That is something the Rochester Museum and Science Center is working on, in addition with a partnership with NTID to hopefully help out the larger area. I know that we will be hiring several for right here at the museum for that weekend, but we need to work on expanding that access.
It would be nice to know itemized, like how much some things cost, like the maps that we were talking about, the texture maps and everything. I know of some organizations that might be interested in purchasing them, but we need to know what the costs are.
That is honestly something I am nudging NASA about. How you request the maps is not very clear on their website, and I've been talking to them about this on how can that be improved. Because I also don't know the cost, and I have it in a general idea of my budget, but I just need to know how to request them.
One of the things that we've been doing as we've been immersing ourselves into this event planning is reminding people that now's probably the time to go ahead and reserve your accessible toilets. Talk to some interpreting service and go ahead and raise your hand and say, yes, we're going to want some interpreters, because it's a trickle down effect. They need to also begin making sure that they have enough staff in place around this event, not just the day of, but we're saying come early, stay late. So from the Wednesday and Thursday before the Monday to the Tuesday and Wednesday after, that's when you can really do some great event planning. And that's when we'll need interpreters in place and ready to go. But advanced reservation for those will be very important.
I have also heard that NTID is getting in contact with a number of deaf NASA engineers, most likely NTID graduates, to bring in to talk about the space industry as well.
Yeah, so really kind of wrap your head around the fact that the whole area will be doing this, or at least, I don't know, 100 different events in our area, at least 100 different events. So that's 100 different places, hopefully looking for their ADA compliant restrooms, their sign language interpreters, their Braille books, their sound boxes. So I guess what we're saying is, as you're planning your events, if you start with the inclusion piece, then you'll probably have these already at the top of your list as opposed to the add-on, because that's when it becomes the mad rush for something that is hopefully not too scarce a resource, but will be harder to find at that point. What other kinds of things are coming up? I think, what time are you done here?
A little after. We're fine till whenever.
Until whenever. Okay, we'll just have dinner here tonight. What I think I want to do is kind of, this is our first meeting. I know Dan and I have done a lot of talking. I've talked with the American Astronomical Society. I've been going to their workshops and presenting on these things, but this is this is us now. This is the 8 to 9 months before this event. What do we want in Rochester? Yes.
So
Lori had one.
Nate, we'll do Nate and then we'll do Lori.
So at the nursing home, we have one less challenge of no one is really transporting or moving. But knowing the strain on the roads, on traffic, and knowing how hard it is for us to get medical assisted transportation for doctor's appointments or anything right now, that is a very scarce resource that I don't imagine will be drastically improved within 1 year. Is there already I don't want to, like a resource guide for if folks are opting to take what you had described in the initial kickoff meeting of, let's make this a block party in our own neighborhood. Let's do this. Let's go outside the front door as opposed to trying to go to events, because so many people are dependent upon a transportation resource that may not be available. Just kind of if you're a community putting on a block party, if you're a family gathering, those types of lists of resources so that folks can kind of take and go on their own.
We need to add them. We have different pieces written up. We just need to add them to the website.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think, and you bring up a great point, Nate, that this is something you can do from your own backyard. You do not have to travel. As we were saying recently, if you have an extra bed in your house, you should rent it out now because those are already being booked. But yes, bring your family and friends in well ahead of the time and have your own expand it out. And then all you need is the viewing device. You need your viewing glasses. Right, that's it. There's no anything else that has to be considered there. Maybe get your snacks and food in for the night, but then it's that next scale of if you're doing that at St. John's and that's your block party. Or if you're going to say, like you were saying, Sue, about that lot over on East River Road. So not only do people have to get to your lot in time for the eclipse, then what are you going to do right after the eclipse? Because everybody else is going to be done too.
Yeah, from having been in a 5-hour traffic jam after the eclipse that I went to. Thinking about,
we should definitely.
a van that needs to do
Some
3 or 4 different drop-offs to get people home. That
Were you in Wyoming by any chance? Because
I was in Tennessee.
You're a chaser. Or else you were just there by chance. But yeah, so these are the kinds of things that if you're going to do that event, it really takes the before, the during, and the after. Because if they're going to wait in your lot or at your block party for 5 hours to let traffic go, then I do hope that you'll have Porta John set up somewhere for them. Extra water. I mean, it's April here, so it could still be cold, but still. It really needs to be planned in that event mindset with all of this extra stuff of transportation added in on top. So when we're looking at key elements of accessibility, it's where does this push into everybody's planning? You're going to plan your event. Do you want to have some of these elements, the sound box, the Rumble app, the viewing, different ways of viewing it? That's one level. And then another level is also just getting information out to people so that people are watching and experiencing it safely. That's a whole other piece of it. You don't just look up at it, right? So what are you going to do in the months before it to be able to inform people about safe viewing? So that's another thing that I think is relevant to our target populations, is making sure that we've talked about how to view it. I know that Dan does a lot of information. He has been already leading up, but there's tons of resources already online too for having those posting posters on how to view safely. getting your viewing glasses ahead of time, making your pinpoint boxes or getting the film for viewing. These are all things that these 8 months are gonna go pretty quickly on. Lori, I remember you had your hand up.
I did, but both of you pretty much covered exactly what I was going to say. So just to recap, just to make sure that everyone understands that, you don't have to go to an event in order to experience this. If you're within this path of totality, or about 120-mile width. So again, just sharing that, the map with folks and letting them know that, if you're not up for trying to travel somewhere to a certain party or whatever, you can still experience it. And some people would prefer to, stay at home with loved ones or, whatever the situation. So, but at the same time, if someone does want to have a more festive party feel and want to go to an event, then by all means, I want to make sure that everyone has that opportunity. And then also you stressed about the transportation, and I'm so glad you did, because you really summarized it very well, but encouraging people to stay late. Anita, you kind of just said that, but if there's things that, just keep that in mind. It's not, from what I'm hearing from other cities across the country and other countries for that matter, I'm hearing that it's worse than, like a Bills game, or it's worse than, a 4th of July party or fireworks in a certain town or something, that it's really going to be we've been using the word a mass exodus. A lot of people are going to be trying to get home or farther, that evening. And we're hearing from other cities that, people leave right at 3:30 as soon as totality is over. They don't even wait, which surprised me that they people are heading home, and wherever home is, if it's across town or down the street or in another state, so we're trying as overall as a community to try to encourage people to stay overnight. So if you are having, friends come in, encourage them to stay over if that's a possibility, or get a hotel, but do that soon because we're hearing things are booking, already and things like that. So I just wanted to make that point. But yeah, hopefully everyone can experience it. I hear it's wonderful. I have not had the opportunity yet.
Thanks, Lori. Laura, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on something you said. You were talking about kind of like it not being an afterthought, accessibility, and getting in that event mindset. This may be something that is a future goal, but as people are planning these events and as organizations are planning these events, one of the things that's most frustrating from an accessibility standpoint is that accessibility a lot of times does feel like an afterthought. It can be thrown in the FAQ of a website, 30 questions down the page. Sometimes it's not even there, and you have to do so much work to try to find out if a place or an event has anything in place. Is there a way, this is just a hypothetical we can talk about, that we as a committee could put together just some talking points or some things encouraging anyone who's building an event or for their organization to have an accessibility section of the website, or an accessibility section of the poster, or a QR code people could scan if they see a poster out in the community to come to this event, where that accessibility information would be front and center and, no pun intended, easily accessible. Because being an afterthought is such a common occurrence, and I think we have a real opportunity here to do it better, both as an overall large event and as a city.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Laura. I know that we've started a resource list, we have two. We have Eclipse project related resources, so we'll make sure that that's out there, and that's a growing thing. And then we also have some tangible things that event holders can do to make their event more accessible and advertise what it is that they have in place. So that could be something that could be worked over with the committee and make sure that we put it out. And I don't know, I think we could request that any any event holder that's gonna advertise something does that, so, we can
Yeah,
certainly.
kind of make it an understanding that that's expected.
Right,
Rather
yeah.
than just, hey, you could do this, but hey, we expect you to also get this information out because it's an integral part of what this whole task force is doing.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's part of the
Yeah.
intent. Yeah.
Okay, so I would ask to voice one. So are there gonna be any camping opportunities, and do we have resources for that? 'Cause people definitely are probably gonna want to camp outside and things like that, yeah.
Camping is a little difficult. There will be some camping locations. But with it being early April, we're worried about the grounds quality and it being very cold.
So that,
We're also worried about the bathroom situations in early April. That being said, there will be opportunities in some areas around the region.
so that taps into my biggest question, when I was looking at places where we can have our eclipse things prior to eclipse things, is that April is the coolest month. And I'm just wondering how we're dealing with the fact that this could be very well be muddy, slippery, if there's ramps that could be horrible, if there's depth and wood that could be a real issue and things. What are you doing to address that?
I think part of it is making people aware that this is an April 8th event. It could be snowing. Despite the fact that most of our pictures of events are everybody's in their t-shirts and sunburn. But for here, that's very early. Part of that is bringing it into the conversation. There's not a lot of Moby mats. If you're familiar with the Moby mat access, there's not a lot here in our area, but that would be a feature that should be advertised if it's going to be present at a site. I know Monroe County has a few new ones. Hamlin Beach State Park is just getting some new ones, so we could potentially piece together where those are and have them placed strategically, not rolled up somewhere in a shed, so that they can give more access. But I think the biggest thing is that as the groups are planning your event, that's what you need to be thinking of. Your parking lot may be snowed over that night. So what is the plan for a snowplow on April the 8th, right? So we're just being very as proactive as we can, getting people to ask these questions and to think about them in advance with some kind of solution. Because this isn't one event that any one entity is hosting, it's not as simple as putting together a budget, a global budget, or resources, right? It's well, what are you doing? Where are you going to be? Well, what's going to happen in your parking lot? You know, it's just amazing amount of strategic planning. And I think what this group, the larger task force stakeholder group, is trying to do is, are you preparing for everything and giving enough advanced moments, light bulb moments for people to realize, oh, yeah, you know, our parking lot might not work for that.
I have a lot of people asking what's the rain date for it.
That's great. But the really cool thing on the science side is, even if it's cloudy, it will be dark at 3:30, 3:28. So that's a phenomenon to prepare, because yes, people are like, oh, it's raining, never mind, or oh, it's snowing, never. Well, it's gonna be nighttime at 3 in the afternoon. It's still very cool. But that's the fun you can have leading up to it. Hopefully you have an after party so people don't care if it was raining, right? An after party that's under a tent in the parking lot that's been shoveled. So that's really that's all we have to go on, because 52% chance of sun that day.
Yep.
In Rochester, not bad.
I was This past April. We use that slide in a lot of our presentations.
Yeah, it was 70 degrees or something, right?
And no clouds.
Sunny.
50s and sunny, that's what.
It was beautiful.
I think I saw a hand. Tracy. And Pilar, sorry.
Hi. So twofold. First of all, I think from the Arc of Monroe, Kristen and I were hopeful that this could also be a springboard to showcase accessibility in Rochester and the way we are embracing accessibility in general and making our community more accessible just across the board for the future everything. So I'm hopeful that we can take what we learn here and not stop here, like really promote it and really go for it and make sure that we are shouting very loudly that this is important to us as a community. That I just want to put that out there. And secondly, I'm sure we do have people who are working with our unhoused people on some of these committees. Is that so? Because I'm just concerned about safety in that regard too. I know we have some intersectionality between disabilities and our unhoused population. I just want to make sure that we're considering them.
We do have one or two as part of our ambassador program, and we're specifically talking about that.
Great. Thank you.
Pilar?
Yeah, sorry, I was typing in it because I have to jump off, but I wanted to say that there's some things like language accessibility that can be done ahead of time, and we've been working on that with Dan for like the RMSC material to get translated to Spanish, but for your organizations, you can also work on that ahead of time. And I myself provide those services as well, so I was going to share in the chat just if anyone wanted to talk about it. But yeah, that's something that can get done this year ahead of time.
Great.
Yeah, thank you for that, Pilar, because when we say inclusion, it's everybody under the sun, and the equitable access to this experience by all is really what we're considering. Yes, disability cuts across every population. And then there's other compounding pieces. And so if we're very boxed and sheltered on who we're advertising to, then we're only gonna reach one certain type of person. So language is certainly part of that. And I appreciate your willingness to help with those translations. There are other services in the community that can help with other languages as well. And so please be mindful of that as you're working on your events. Other thoughts and questions, Caroline?
Yes, so what you're saying is there are a lot of immigrants, refugees that are in Rochester, and they may not know sign language, and also in dealing with people that have certain accessibility problems and the language problems, pictures and gestures may be a better solution, especially if there's a language problem involved.
Right, so a photo story where we can explain what's happening, what's going to happen, that can be presented beforehand, a storyboard type of a poster, for instance.
There's some that we actually started to develop back in 2021 for a partial eclipse. My favorite being somebody wearing regular sunglasses and just saying no. And then someone wearing eclipse glasses doing 2 thumbs up and smiling.
Yeah,
so something even that simple was a huge help.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that would be great to have. I'm just thinking of the boards at RTS stops to have these kinds of posters start coming up now between now and April 8th that are educational in pictorial or braille or English or any other language, but just something that simple could be a good piece.
As a couple of notes that I just want to bring up. I've actually been messaging my friends at NASA on their accessibility committee, giving them some of the feedback directly. And
Wow.
they're being brought up right now. There's going to be a big meeting in a few weeks. Hopefully they will be 3D printing the map and making that available. So that bit of feedback from earlier this meeting is now in the hands of NASA.
Nice.
It's right time, right place. Of other things I kind of want to bring up when I think about the eclipse is it is a very sensory heavy experience. The light will dim, the temperature will drop by 10 degrees in a very quick amount of time. It will become still, and then you will also have to deal with people cheering or laughing or crying. It's a very spiritual and moving experience that you can't always tell how people are going to react. So that's one of those things that we're kind of keeping in the back of our minds of making sure that we have sensory safe locations as well.
How are you making it spiritual and giving people the impact when they have to be indoors in a hospital and homebound and things like that, because they may see it on TV, but it won't be the, it won't be as deep an experience.
So one thing that we've been talking about at the nursing home is in the taller buildings that face the direction of the sun at that time, trying to find window clings that are the same as the glasses so that people can come up to the window, and doing that in a common area like the dining room that faces out towards that area. Because we know there are lots of folks who will not be able to go downstairs, but who can come out of their room. For folks who are completely unable to leave their bed, that is a bigger challenge. We're looking for suggestions too.
I do have an idea on that, which involves the cardboard VR of being able to cheaply replicate the 360-degree view with a 360-degree streaming camera, which I know that there are a number of within the region.
Okay.
We can talk later. I can also tell you where to buy the rolls of material to cover the windows, as we have that in our giant eclipse glasses, which some of them are actually at a lower level, which works out really well for both kids and for wheelchair users. So you can still look up under them. Great. One other thing, what was the last thing I was going to bring up? One thing I want us to also think about is thinking about who is still not in this room. What populations haven't we thought about? And even well before the eclipse, thinking about performing that outreach. Right now, as the museum, I'm going into as many different festivals as possible, for which is exhausting, and I can always use extra hands. But I can only cover so many areas because there's only one of me, and I know we're not hitting everyone. Some events you have to drive out to or be bused to. We need to be able to go to people and where they are. That's one of the big pieces about the eclipse outreach is you can't expect people to come to you. You must go to the people.
Yeah,
Can you have a list of, we could do I don't know, sign up genius or something
Yeah,
like that.
I was about to say, I'm pretty available, so if you need other people to go to these events, then I'd be happy to help where I can.
I will send you those links.
You are signed up.
And it's not hard and it's actually quite fun.
Yeah, it's great. I am thinking about some of the organizations, so ARCs here, Starbridge, some of the organizations that you're looking at your events, but you're still not gonna get everybody that's in your membership. You know, at 3:30, will they have left work or day programming, or will they be back at group home settings? Will they be back where is staff gonna be trying to travel to be with people that receive one-on-one service or community hab? So that's that kind of thing that when Dan's talking about the true logistics of that day, even Nate, you mentioned medical appointments. Maybe don't schedule medical appointments on Monday, April 8th, because the resources are just stuck. But I am wondering then, to Dan's question, are we able, who are we not able to reach yet, that we have 8 months to reach with information, with resources, with viewing glasses, with alternatives to viewing glasses? I'm just curious about if anybody, if you want to throw it in the chat or you want to shout it out, but I think our committee had 15 to 20 people on it, which represented some big parts of the community, but still, who did you not see on that list when you were signing up?
I know we need to start translating the documents into even more languages. I've already been asked if we can get an Arabic version for some of the local mosques.
Okay.
For some local mosque and refugee populations.
And I can't really think of any organizations off the top of my head, but I will be meeting with several organizations over the next couple of months. And so I can put my Eclipse hat on for at least 5 minutes of that meeting and definitely have some talking points.
Yeah, we have. Says I host deaf night out monthly. I can pick a place for the deaf to meet up there. I can pinpoint one specific spot for the deaf to show up. I can generate more interest, and deaf usually want to know which spot most of them are going to.
Yeah, I think that's great. Part of my thought when I first started working with the group was people need to go to whatever they naturally go to. So if they hang out with their community rec center, then the community rec centers need to be inclusive. If they hang out with their social clubs, those social clubs need to have been prepared inclusively. So that was part of the bigger thing, is any public event should be accessible and inclusive. So that's one realm. And then when you have specific groups that are planning something internally, supporting how we can make sure there's resources that are wanted there, the apps, the different pieces. I think I lost the train there.
To help you to further optimize accessibility for deaf, blind, and spot.
Yes, is the answer. We'll have definite contact with you. I know that we have the thing that Dan mentioned about NTID and the events that they're planning there. That will be one piece that's specifically targeting NTID alumni and etc. But when you start looking at who you're already hanging out with, I think that's a very organic way to involve people around this particular event. So we'll definitely connect with you for that promotional. Tracy.
And I think from promoting that as well, all of us IDD providers in the community, there's so many of us, and I think if we can package up a nice message, and I'll push it out, simultaneously on social, so that everybody is getting the same message about making sure that all of their events have these accessible features. And then that will kind of tap into those organic places that people will naturally gravitate to. They'll see those messages repeatedly, hopefully over time.
Yeah, and Tracy, it just does make me think of events that are that families will need transportation to get to on that day. I'm thinking of Starbridge as well. I don't know how, that's always the big catch anyway, is transportation. So I'm wondering what strategies around combining events amongst different organizations. I don't know. I just think I despair that people will be left back at home, not be able to get to those events that we're planning, but just because of accessible transportation.
Yeah, I think that it's a conundrum for sure. It's going to be a huge conundrum, but I know we're going to encourage people to stay local, and we're going to probably release our day programs early that day and make sure that people, that large transportation piece isn't going to be an issue, and then create opportunities for people who live within our residences and our homes to have what they need to enjoy the eclipse closer to home.
Yeah, and so then I think as we go back to some of those resources, it'll be important to try to connect to make sure that each of them have, the
Everything
different,
they need.
those tents or the different viewing pieces. So
we're already planning our branded glasses. So
that's great. So I can feel that we're kind of loaded and lots of stuff going through our heads. What if we wrap with an open question of what does this group want from ourselves? One thing I did here was that we want to collectively push this agenda of accessibility and inclusion throughout the community, not just our spaces that we already have that conversation, but to the larger community. And that involved a couple different things we talked about, the resource sheets, looking at some of those pieces and strategically placing them, maybe mapping out, contributing to where the events are. I'd like to hear though, how often do we want to meet? That's one of the things. And what would be our key benchmarks for moving forward over these months?
So the next time the big group is meeting is July 13th, I think I heard you say.
Yes.
Maybe sometime after that would be towards the end of July, beginning of August-ish would be good.
So are we thinking like monthly or?
I don't know, I'm asking. We're getting, there's a lot of work and not a lot of time, so.
Right.
Yeah, part of it is those of you holding events, like that's where your energy is going to go. You need to go plan your events.
Yeah.
To what extent does this committee help you with that?
That's also an important question.
Yeah, so throw some thoughts out.
I think the map of the events is going to be a key driver for a lot of things. So is there a way we could start some kind of a teamworks or some kind of a shareable document that we could start to build a spreadsheet of our events?
There's just within our committee or
I mean, the map of the events will probably be comprehensive, right? All events throughout the community and where things are going to be.
Yes, we're trying to collect as many as possible on the Rochester Eclipse 2024.org website.
So
under events, you can already start to see a few, but most right now are just related to talks. As we get closer, that's when we'll actually have the viewing events listed there.
So how do people submit their events then? Through that site? Okay. All right. I think that's a key driver, is understanding the brevity of that.
And is there a field in that, Dan, in that submission? Like a little field where you could say, list any accommodations or, you know, any, I don't know, is there some box? I don't know.
I love that.
There, not, it
I'm
should
glad
be
you-
there.
I'm glad you asked it first, Lori. Because that would totally be what I think our agenda would be, is if anybody that puts their event there gives that information right off the bat. So it's like, as we said earlier, first and right at the front. But those could be very specific questions. Will you have a sign language interpreter? Will you have firm and stable pathways available? Will you have adult changing centers?
Ooh, yeah.
So we could give them the top things and they just do yes, no, yes, no. Something like that might be.
And then it could be indicated on that, like with different icons.
Great.
Yeah, and then for the public facing calendar, are we able to build in a filter so that they can view easily what the accessibility events are?
I'm sure we could get that worked out with our web developer.
Cool. Okay, I've got one here. Do we have a process for deafblind that is not affiliated with NTID to request services before the event? They usually need personal support.
Not yet. That is something we should work on. Once we do have that list, I will send that to our web developer and we will add that to the form immediately.
Okay.
That is a very quick, all I need to know is what questions we want to ask. My guess is we'll do check boxes at the bottom.
Okay. So we can generate a first draft of that list and send back out to this email group in case there's another one that you want us to involve in that. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One of the nice things that we do have working for us is we're not the only people in the path working towards this. And that other resources should be developed across other locations in the path. In addition to the national level, I wouldn't be surprised if some of our friends in like Cleveland and Texas and Indianapolis, any of them might also be working on this. It's just a matter of finding out who they are.
So August is, I mean, I don't like to hold meetings just to hold meetings. So I think if we know what we want, what would we be checking up on in August if we meet? What are those agenda items that we want to track? The development of the map, seeing if the questions are being answered, seeing if the community is asking for help. Other things that you want us to track if we were to meet in August?
I think bringing those folks that aren't already at the table to the table, as we mentioned earlier, getting them in earlier rather than.
And if we set a date before the July meeting, then we can spread the word.
Advertise it, okay.
I think I would just add, Anita, maybe some like some educational things, like maybe if everyone could bring back a little list of who did you tell this about, or did you have any conversations? Did you talk about it at your staff meeting, your board meeting, or your something? I don't know, just maybe like a little homework of anything that success stories, victories that, you know, oh, I happened to tell my church about it, or I heard about it here, or I don't know, something like that. Or you shared it on social, or you posted it, something like that.
That sounds good. I like that. I think for us with RAA, we will start social media push and probably email individuals, groups around promotion of their event accessibly, inclusively. So that would be something that we can share out. If it's useful to y'all to use, you can share that out too. But just things that, because I know in the beginning of the meeting, we talked about, we want everyone to talk about this in a bigger way, not just the eclipse, but like every day, just everyday part of our community. So that's been our hope, is that if we can get this really concerted effort that has hit every sector of our community, if we can have them talking about inclusion for this, then we can turn around and say, now, how about Tuesday, April 9th? Still inclusive. So that, Tracy, when you said that earlier, that's exactly the agenda that we're operating on this. We're just literally using it as a stepping stone where people can say, oh yeah, you're right, which we know, but doing it in a contributing way and changing the nature of our community. So
that's something that we might want to look at next time. When I'd mentioned it, making, not an afterthought, and having some resources put together for people to, who aren't, maybe organizations aren't familiar with talking about inclusivity and accessibility, having those resources put together as a starting point for them, that I think would be something really good to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sooner than later. The other thing that you said something, and I can't remember what it was, but it made me think that, have we asked any of these populations ourselves what would make it more accessible for them? I know that we have various groups and people and backgrounds represented on this committee, but there's probably stuff, there's always stuff that we can't think of everything. So are there plans to maybe do some outreach and ask segments of the population what they would like to see and what would make it more accessible and, more apt for them to want to attend and be included?
I think that's a great question. I think that it is the motivation behind this relationship that RMSC brought in very early on to this eclipse planning. I think that there's a pretty general understanding of what the barriers are to participation. There's a pretty clear understanding that certain things will keep people away. And I think what you just mentioned as one of them is, if we haven't invited people, we're not expecting them there. So I feel like this committee is that. So as we said, who's not at the table, and this is the invitation that we want to get those voices from. So anybody can be invited. If we're identifying who's not here, we can invite people to be a stakeholder on the website and then join this committee. That's an open invitation to the universe. So this committee could be 100 people, it could be 150 people if this is what their interest is. So Dan mentioned there are 500, I think, stakeholders signed up. So we had 20 sign up for the accessibility committee, but we could start with those 500 and just say, would you like to come to this specific focus topic and be a part of and contribute to and make sure that we're not missing somebody. That isn't, I would first say, anybody that you're thinking of when you talk about that outreach is ask them to become a stakeholder and then sign up for this committee. And that gets their voice directly here. Other thoughts on that? Anybody? I just want to say I did not say others up on that, is what it said. The translator on the screen, I did not say that, but I did ask if anybody had other comments that they wanted to add to that.
I will be posting this video on YouTube with improved captions in a couple of days. I do make sure to take all of our meetings, get them up on YouTube. I do spend the hour or so sitting through going little bit by little bit to make sure things are actually captioned correctly. It just takes me a little bit of time.
Appreciate that, yeah. Anything else for today? I will create a doodle poll for another date, or we'll just come up with a date that Dan is available with his tech system, because that is just an amazing thing. But we will shoot for August for that one, so that we have that date in July to invite others to. Sound good?
Awesome.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks to the first ever Total Solar Eclipse Accessibility Committee. Thank you all. Enjoy those of you that are online. Thank you all that traveled here, not online. See you next time.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Anita. Thanks, Dan.